Good morning, explorers. Today we're going to be reviewing the duck knife, the knife that I carry with me every day, but I kind of want to get out of the city right now, so let's hop on the bike and we will head up to Thumb Butte. This is a good spot, but over there looks a little prettier. Let's go. Okay, well, I think we are finally about ready to get started with this video. We're at the beautiful Thumb Butte. I just followed this beautiful little stream down maybe a mile on foot, and you might be able to hear it if I'm quiet for a second. There's also a beautiful, what sounds like an acorn woodpecker somewhere up there. We're in a ponderosa pine forest right now, so you can hear the wind rustling through just in the softest, calmest way. Again, if I'm quiet. Well, anyway, let's get started. Get the sun out of my eyes. This is going to be a review of the Le Duc survival knife made by Outdoor Edge. I wear it pretty much every day of my life. I've made some modifications to it since I've owned it. I've owned it for probably 5 or 6 years at this point, and it still holds up very well. It's not in the same condition it was new, obviously, especially since I wear it every day, but it is holding up remarkably well. I wear it on my right hip, right here, so you can't even really tell what it is when you have a shirt or jacket over it, but if I were to pull that up, you can see it has a nice little rotating sheath right here, and a nice synthetic rubber handle. And then it has this little locking mechanism here, so if you were to pull on it, the knife doesn't just come out. However, just a flick of your thumb and the knife is out in a jiffy. And then to put it back in, you just slide it, push this locking mechanism up until you hear a click, and then it's in place. And this is after about 5 years of use on here, which is really amazing. I'm impressed. And then I also have this kind of mechanism on here to keep the knife actually on me. It's 2 of these keyring loops and then an ID pulley along with a carabiner. So I have this clip around me just because this is so long. You could obviously do it shorter, but this allows the knife, if you were to pull it out, you can go about arm's length away, but that's it. Any further than that and this won't let you go. So that's a good thing, especially since this knife tends to get snagged on things and get pulled out. And part of that is attributed to this little key ring here that's kind of loose and I definitely need to fix. But even before I had that on, I lost this knife so many times before I learned that I had to keep it tied to myself. And this can just pop off, especially after this kind of use. The only thing that keeps it on there is this little knob right here. It's just a raised piece of the plastic. That does get worn down. But you did hear that audible click just a moment ago, so you can tell that it's made well, but after some use, the knife can fall out. And if I pull hard enough here, the knife comes out, so just keep that in mind. And if you do decide to get this knife, I would definitely recommend tying it to yourself somehow. What this does for me is if this does get snagged somewhere or if it does fall off, I just drop the knife. I'm hiking, whatever, I didn't hear it, or I'm listening to music, I'm on my bike. The knife is still attached to me somehow. And this is also a fun party trick too, because if it does get snagged and you don't notice it, suddenly there's just a knife on a bungee flailing around. So hopefully there are no kids around in the area, but it does tend to attract attention and make people laugh. So I'll show you how this is clipped onto here. There's a lower clipping mechanism right here, and it's the perfect size for my belt. Just kind of rotates all around after some use initially. When you first get the knife, this does have a click, that kind of thing, a kind of locking mechanism. However, after so much use, it just kind of freely spins. So that's another thing to keep in mind. After some wear and tear, it will turn into a spinning top. I'm going to take this off so you can get a closer look. You can also see on here I did have part of a matchbox glued onto here. That way I can keep matches on myself. and just light them off of the knife, which is fun, and it looks pretty cool too. Now, this knife is about 3.2 ounces without the additions that I've made. That's just this sheath here, the knife handle, and this little section on the back of the sheath. The original does come with a small, about 1 foot length of paracord, enough to hang it around your neck, which is what the box said. And I still think that's kind of funny to have this thing just swaying around your neck, especially in like when you're hiking or camping. I just thought that was funny. So this knife weighs 3.2 ounces, and the whole length of the blade is 2.5 inches, and the total length of the entire knife is just short of 6 inches. So if you're into scouting, you know that Boy Scouts are not allowed to have knives that are longer than their fingers, and they're not actually allowed to have fixed blade knives at most campsites anyway. However, if you do find a campsite that allows you to have a fixed blade knife, this one is quite small, and it's smaller than most people's fingers. I mean, I'm an adult human, so you can see that my fingers aren't that thick either, so this is a good size, and it's actually pretty small as far as fixed blades go. So I thought that this was just a nice size to have. You know, when you're hiking or backpacking, you don't need a gigantic knife to go with you for most applications. This will do most of the jobs just fine. And it's small, it's compact, it's lightweight, and like I showed you a moment ago, when it's underneath your jacket or shirt, it goes unnoticed. So it's fine to carry around in every day. You don't have to worry about a penknife hanging around in the bottom of your pocket, falling out anywhere. Well, I guess with this one, you actually do have to worry about it falling out. So keep it clipped somewhere. Let's take a closer look at both the knife and the sheath. Jeez, this lighting is really just making everything look so gorgeous. On there you can see it says Le Duc and then the model number of the knife. It's called Le Duc, or the Duck, because the back of the handle looks like a duck. How cute is that? And it's also a nice conversation topic, as I mentioned earlier. You probably will get some questions about this, especially if you're not very good at hiding it under your shirt initially. The blade is made of carbon, though I've used this quite a lot, and I haven't gotten any chips on it whatsoever. One thing about the blade material, I don't know what it's coated in. You can see that the black is kind of wearing off here. It does look quite beautiful, but it does get kind of sticky sometimes. Even if you're not like using it to cut up apples or anything, if you're just cutting wood, it'll get sticky, which is strange, and it makes me feel like it's not from the things you're cutting up, it's from the knife itself. But whatever it is, whatever that stickiness is, I've used this knife so much for food that I sincerely hope that it's not harmful, because I've definitely eaten a lot of it. So once again, the handle is made of synthetic rubber. You can see this kind of, not ribbing exactly, but texture here. It kind of looks like an igneous rock, inverted. And my fingers fit through here pretty well, and you can see there's kind of a curve here, like a U shape almost. And your fingers fit in there. It feels nice, but once you start working with this kind of grip, it does not feel nice. I can tell you that much. However, for most applications, you are going to be making a trade-off for size and weight and function. So it's smaller, it's more compact, it's easy to use. However, it's not going to be too comfortable just because of the size. It's not meant for bushcraft, it's not meant for cooking or really any one thing in particular except survival. And this is part of Outdoor Edges, the company that made this knife. This is part of their survival series. So that's exactly what the knife is made for. Just because this wouldn't be a knife review video without us cutting something with the knife, we'll shave off the edge of this ponderosa pine branch. As you can see, although the knife does look ergonomic, it does look like it's super comfortable to use, it actually isn't all that comfortable to use. At the bottom of the hilt here, you can see a little eye through the duck's face. I guess that's just the duck's eye. But I've used this to put a keychain ring through to keep it secured. Initially, this is where the paracord was, and then it wrapped up through part of the sheath up here. However, I recommend getting creative with this, having a little bit of fun. You could probably fit a whole lanyard through there if you put a needle through it. Yeah, so let's move on to the sheath now. So you can see the belt loop here says Les Duck and the Outdoor Edge logo is right here. Very, very cool. And on the front here, we can read Outdoor Edge underneath this little piece of paper that I've glued here. This is the match striker. And then we can see Survival Series right there. And then there's all these loops here to weave through, I suppose. So on the box, there were a few different designs that you could supposedly make with the paracord that was supplied with it. But as I mentioned earlier, the paracord was only about a foot long. You would have to use your own paracord. It's just kind of like a feature almost. When companies do that, it's just, I feel like they don't have enough information to put on the box. But, you know, that's just me. I'm not a marketer. Maybe they just wanted to make their users feel a little bit more empowered and a little bit more creative than something, say, regular pilot knife where you don't really have much room to be creative on the sheath. I mean, this is quite some opportunities here with this sheath. I've taken one of them by gluing this match striker here, and then you could embroider or something on top of this using these loops. It's very cool, especially since this belt loop, there's this about 3mm space between the belt loop and the sheath itself, and you could absolutely do some awesome designs here. And I wasn't in the design room, so I really don't know what their actual intention for all of these holes are, but I can tell you that it has absolutely created lots of opportunities for the user. And this is that little knob that I mentioned earlier right here at the tip of my fingernail. I mentioned it earlier. It's kind of hard to see in person as well, but I think you can probably see the edge there. This is what the locking mechanism attaches to. You hear that click? So you'll insert the knife into this hole, and then supposedly the knife won't come out. And initially, it won't, which is pretty great. Anyway, another thing that I love about this sheath is that it has this little nub right here. It's not really a knob, it's just kind of a separate section of the sheath. And if you have this knife on your desk or what have you, and you need to use it one-handed because you got something to cut in your left hand, just pop it open with one thumb and give this a good flick, and the sheath comes off. And that's just a nice feature, and it makes me feel like it was intentional. I don't know if it was or not, but I like that feature. Back to the sheath now. I wish I could show you the clicking that this initially did, however, I cannot go back in time, so I apologize. Perhaps by next season we'll have the time machine repaired and we'll be able to show you. This freely rotates now. This is the perfect size for my belt, which is a rather large belt, so if you do wear a skinnier belt, beware that this will jiggle. Another thing that I do is I put this through my belt loop on the pants as well as the belt. It's wide enough to do that with my belt, which I just mentioned is pretty wide, so it's definitely wide enough to do that with most belts. And that'll keep it from sliding horizontally around your waist, because let me tell you, there's nothing more annoying than needing your knife and knowing that it's on your waist somewhere, but you just can't find it. Another neat little feature of this knife is that it actually has a drain hole right here, meaning that you can use it as a pilot knife. You can see some light coming through from the back there. So you can actually put this knife back in wet, though I would not recommend doing that because rust and many other reasons, including bacteria, and it will smell funky afterward. Again, you can see that hole right through there, and that is just in case. So if you're a rafter or someone, this knife is a good choice for you. Like I said earlier, it's nice and lightweight, and it's rather inexpensive as well. This cost me $30 5 years ago. I just checked online and they're going for about $25 on most websites right now. Another thing to be wary of with this knife is that this sheath is actually 2 pieces of plastic together. And you can see there's 2 flathead screws right here. They're just both sides screwed in together. And these do come loose. They're actually quite loose right now. I tighten these probably once every 2 weeks. And good thing is that the knife will actually work to tighten them. However, you really do need 2 knives to be able to get it super duper tight, which is what you want a sheath to be. You want it to be pretty darn tight on there. So let's try and take off these screws right now. I don't have my backup knife with me right now, so we will just be doing this with my finger on the other side. We're gonna put this knife in here. I'm just gonna twist. It's It's not the best, but it's definitely possible, and it's not that difficult. And as you can see, these two screws fit together quite nicely. And then on the actual design, when it's put together, the sheath would be between these two, and you could tighten them to make the sheath tighter. I'll get the other screw out and we'll pop it open. And with those screws off, we can separate the two parts of the sheath right here. This freely spins now, and this is a great feature because you can actually just order a replacement one of these, which is nice if you do manage to shatter it somehow, but this is the part that's closest to your body, so I hope you're okay if you manage to shatter this. You can see how it's kind of worn down underneath this area where it's been. This is supposed to go right here, and then the screws just go through these holes. And something else interesting about this sheath is that this actually won't fit in right here, that you can see that the screw holes don't really line up. You might be able to finagle it in there. However, at a diagonal, the screw holes do align up here and here. So you could set up the knife to be like this with the clip up here, though I don't know why you would do that. But hey, I'm not you. You may want to do that. One more thing that I do recommend that you do when you clean your knife, which you should do often, I recommend every 2 weeks, if not sooner. You can actually see some rust spots on here from me putting it back in wet. You want to make sure that you dry your knife before you put it back in. And this hole that we saw earlier, you can just shoot some water through here, or you can even blow through it with your mouth. That was nice. Just make sure that you dry off everything after cleaning it. You can just leave it in the sun for a little while, it'll dry off. And this is how you can tighten the screws. Just your fingers really have enough grip on the pad of your finger to hold the screw in place with one hand while you tighten it with your knife on the other. Just make sure not to push it too hard because you'll dent your knife or you'll strip the screw. Well, I hope you enjoyed that. This has been a review of Outdoor Edge's Leduc Survival Knife, my favorite knife in the entire world. As far as stars go, I'll give it 4 stars because there are definitely some things that they could improve on here. But I think 4 stars is the highest we've ever rated anything on this show so far, as far as reviews go at least. I would give it 5 stars. The things that are preventing me from doing that are this knob wearing down right here. This apparatus, this clicking apparatus, if this was made to be metal, it would last probably an entire lifetime. But this unclicks quite easily now. Like I said earlier, I've had the knife for about 5 years now, so I may need to look into a new replacement sheath. As far as the knife itself goes though, this still holds up exponentially well. It is still sharp, it holds an edge for a long time. And like all knives, it depends how often you use it, how often you need to sharpen it and clean it, and also what you use it for. So this is about on par with some of the nicer knives that I've owned, as far as holding an edge and staying clean, except for the stickiness thing. What the heck is up with that? I know that this is a carbon blade. I'm not sure if it's carbon black or what. I couldn't get more information on the actual blade type based on the box that the knife came with. At least 5 years ago I couldn't. But these knives are still in production today, so maybe, hopefully, the newer boxes include more information on the blade type and perhaps a warning if it is carbon black. On here, another thing that I like is that the label and the model number are actually kind of tucked away here. I don't usually like that stuff, but it's a beautiful color. Just an absolutely beautiful color as the coating kind of wears down and gives everything the stickies. Another thing preventing me from giving this 5 stars is that the synthetic rubber handle just kind of wears down and it comes off in your hands. I don't think you'd be able to see it on the camera, but the pads of my fingers are black now after rubbing this. And the handle also gets a little bit sticky, so it could just be a result of these being so close to each other or something like that, or perhaps water running down from the handle onto the blade. Whatever the case, this is not the nicest handle. It's uncomfortable to use, but I do understand why that design choice was made. At the end of the day, this is a knife for survival. It's not a knife for cooking, it's not a knife for comfort, it's not a knife for looks. This is about utility and utility only, which I respect very, very much. Outdoor Edge, you did an excellent job with this knife. I love it. I take it with me pretty much everywhere except the airport. And when I do go to the airport, it's in my checked luggage. So I would absolutely recommend this to a friend, though if I were to redesign the knife, some changes that I would make is making the sheath have some sort of metal on this clipping apparatus if the entire sheath was not metal. But then you run into the issue of this rusting. I don't know. There's got to be a solution somewhere, though. So this is the type of person I am. I like to rig things and make modifications wherever possible. So if you watch this review and you like this knife, I do recommend that you get it. Just be prepared to make some of these modifications yourself. And that's also not necessarily a bad thing, because you get to experiment and you get to have fun and you get to add your own flair. What fun would it be if everybody who owned this duck knife had the exact same knife? That wouldn't be so much fun. If the blade was made of recycled metals, or if the sheath was made of recycled plastic, or even if the synthetic rubber handle was just actual rubber. Or what I've seen in some other knife companies, they're actually using tires now to make rubber handles on things, which is just so cool. So cool. Once again, thank you for watching. I really hope that you enjoyed this. Go check out Outdoor Edge's stuff. I'll put a link to the knife in the description, as well as to the Outdoor Edge site. If you like this video, please consider pressing the little thumbs up button over there. It lets me know that you liked it, lets me know that you want to see more me talking about knives in the woods, which is so much fun to do. Honestly, it's like just such a relaxing day to get to go out, hang out outside, and talk to myself in front of a camera and wave knives around. And if you really love this video, or you want to see more reviews about stuff, leave a comment down below, let me know what you want to see, or you can press that subscribe button and the dinner bell next to it, and then the wizards of the internets will let you know when I put another video up. We're living in an age of magic. Anywho, thanks again, and I'll see you in the next episode. On the back of the handle, and flick it off, right? Maybe. So I don't have my backup knife, and like most knives,